Morning. Nice to see a number of people I haven't seen before, or maybe seen just a few times. Thanks for coming far and wide. We'll start by taking refuge. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. And I take refuge in the Sangha. So I'll start with a question that all of us can take a moment to contemplate. What is the primary focus of your life? Maybe it was appropriate that the cell phone dinged right at that moment. What is the primary focus of your life? Is there an immediate spiritual practice is the primary focus of my life? Is there an immediate response? Do you know? Do you know what you spend most of your time thinking about? All of us have to care for our lives, our jobs, maintaining the spaces we've created, our relationships that have been built over time, caring for our families and friends. Perhaps those are the ingredients for the primary focus of our life. What else is there? A different way to offer this question is, how are you engaging with this unfolding experience? How is it going? I think it's really important to take time as we're able to perform regular inspections, to ask these questions of our life. They go so fast, and there are so many little dings on our devices that take us away from these kind of elemental, essential questions of how to live a human life. So performing regular diagnostic exams of our own scaffolding. If someone does have their cell phone on, maybe there's a little ding happening, maybe turn it off to silence. Does anyone know where that's coming from? If not, we'll just work with it. Hopefully it's not me. I don't think I have a cell phone. The framework from which we move, from time to time, we need to look at this, because it's really easy to run on automatic, responding to our life from habit and reactivity rather than from freshness of a flexible, open state of mind. How can we create clarity around our pivot point, the place from which we would like to move, the place from which we would like to respond? Establishing a strong scaffolding based in presence, based in precepts, rooted in goodness, does not mean, unfortunately, that we will always know just what to do. It doesn't mean we'll always know which choice to make, what step to take, or how exactly to respond most skillfully. I think one of the mistakes of practice is that I've encountered in myself many times is that if I sit long enough, I'll figure it all out. That can be a pitfall in practice, that one, there is something that is figure-outable. If I sit here longer, I'll figure it all out. I'll arrive at something. I'm moving on this train. I'll get off. There'll be the station. I'll get there. But one thing we find is that actually there is nowhere to land, nothing to arrive at. And that can be a great sense of relaxation, It's just not possible in the flow of change, in the flow of impermanence to arrive. But with a solidly built foundation, by taking the time to establish ourselves in something called the 4 immeasurables, equanimity, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and compassion, we are better equipped to move with this always almost arriving but never quite life, this unpredictable life, the unending winds of change. We can meet these unending winds of change with poise and balance. We have that capacity. We have that option. Tibetan practitioner and author Alan Wallace says the 4 immeasurables are the quintessence of Buddhist meditation. And I did have to look up quintessence, which is defined as the essence of a thing in its purest and most concentrated form. So the 4 immeasurables are the quintessence of Buddhist meditation. These 4 qualities can become our own deep roots of our life, stabilizing and strengthening everything that we do, because we can make them our pivot point. We can make them the place from which we hope to move. The roots of goodness. And from these roots, each one of us has our own karmic circumstances, and no doubt each person's life will be different, whatever the root, whatever the base. Kosho Uchiyama, in a book called, which is where I'm kind of basing this talk from, The Roots of Goodness, says, "You are a once in eternity being. You are a once in an eternity being. There has never been anyone like you. Your circumstances, posture, experiences are unique to you and you alone." So it's up to you. How will you meet your unique and precious life? We are alive in this body, in this family, in this time in history. There's some things that we just can't fight. Here it is. The choice that we have within this context, the choice which is ours to recognize, is how we will engage with these conditions as they arise. What is the primary focus of your life? And where would you like your place of return to be? Another way to put it is, what is your vantage point like these days? Experience is happening, whether we like the experience or not. And what seasonings are we adding? What flavors are we selecting to place on top of this experience? The 4 immeasurables can be the seasoning. They can be the basis of operation and a way of creating a sense of agency, which might not seem obvious at first. But it's a way of stepping back from reactivity, stepping back from our habit of how we usually respond, and into choice. Into the choice of recognizing that we don't have to believe everything we think. But we need space and the cultivation of a sturdy foundation of goodness to really live that truth. What is your vantage point like these days? Right now? And how, right now, are you actively engaged in expanding it? Nurturing this sense of agency, a sense of mental pliancy, begins with an honest assessment or recognition of our habituated engagement patterns that are already at play. And this honesty is not an invitation to draw conclusions, to say, I am like this, and they are like this, and the world is like this. It's not an invitation to draw conclusions about who we are or what we're capable of. And it's not a test or an invitation for judgment. Honesty is simple engagement, being present with our life. Emotions, beliefs, feeling tones as they emerge and change. In meditation, we have this beautiful opportunity to take the position of unbiased witness and be witness to the ways in which we run on automatic. We need to see it first in order to really engage with it. So you might see, oh wow, I really do say I can't a lot. Or I sure do have a lot of opinions about how everyone else should be, act, talk, dress, behave. Is all of this opinioning, judging, assessing, accusing necessary, or is it extra? Is it just habit? Can I let it go? Meditation practice, stopping, sitting still, breathing, taking care of our own mind and body, lets us see all of this, lets us really be honest with what's going on. There's a kind of scary thing that we do by sitting down. We're really saying, like, I'm willing to look at whatever's here, and it's not all going to be pretty. So meditation is taking care of our own body and mind, and not only taking care of our own mind and body, but also the larger body. So even just the people in this room, when we come together, we're taking care of each other. And recognizing that everyone we meet, all sentient beings we meet, will benefit when we take time to nourish this quality of honesty, to nourish the seeds of presence and unbiased awareness. Everyone we meet will benefit from that. And it can be helpful to recognize that those benefits are mysterious and we don't know how they continue to unfold. So maybe the kindness and presence we've offered to a friend is then something they're able to offer to their friends and family. And that just continues onward ad infinitum, that goodness. So meditation is taking responsibility for our own states of mind and subsequently the heart and body of the whole. In this stillness of meditation, we see the continuous, literally unending stream of chatter that's possible, that has no end and no place of rest. Has anyone noticed that? The second of the four great Bodhisattva vows says, delusions are inexhaustible. And that's something to look into for yourself. This unending stream of thoughts, which has no way of stopping itself, is both very deeply personal. We have to work with it and recognize it and see it. And also very impersonal, just happening. These thoughts are a reflection or a product of everything that's ever happened in our little micro moment of a life and in all of history, everything that's ever happened. They're a reflection of this particular moment in history, the history of our own life, our parents, everything we've heard and seen and felt. Here they all are, unending. And as modern people, I think it's helpful to recognize that we're truly bursting at the seams with content. We are absorbing news and images from all over the world constantly. Listening to, I had to ask what the streaming mediums are, but listening to Spotify. We can listen to anything we want. Our pantries are full of flavors from all over the world, and that's just kind of an expectation that we have that turmeric and avocados and apples from New Zealand will be available and good tasting. They will have traveled across the world and still be fresh and ready for us to consume. And we're able to purchase almost whatever we want. Next day delivery. And these purchases, many of them serve purely for the purpose of our own sensory enjoyment. How are we meeting this? With what ground do we meet all of this? Some of us are truly bursting at the seams with content. So sitting down to meditation, especially when we first get started, it's almost like this invitation for the Bonneville Dam to just break. And it's like it's all this content, all this feeling, all this beliefs and thoughts and images. We're just waiting for this moment for us to be still and present so that they could rush forward and be seen. That's what meditation was like when I first started, and sometimes still. The dam breaks. How do we hope to meet this? How are we recognizing, nurturing, developing a sense of agency and flexibility in the midst of this constancy? Internal and external, constant change. Sitting still, quieting the body helps the mind recognize that it can also follow suit, that it can also quiet. Relaxing body and mind, breathing, and then bravely stepping into this honest relationship with our own heart-mind, with our own experience, with our own habit body, with our own well-rehearsed methods of reactivity. And returning to the four immeasurables, the quintessence of Buddhist meditation, also known as the four divine abidings. They are a place of return, a place to abide, a place to rest, a way out of the ring, a way out of the fight. And the four immeasurables are again equanimity or impartiality, which I also like, loving kindness, sympathetic joy, and compassion. These are the backbone of practice. And of course, we learn this in school and it seems obvious. Like, of course I want to be kind and loving and supportive to everyone I meet. Do I really have to practice that? But when I'm doing this honest assessment, am I doing that? Do I remember to do it? Why is it so difficult sometimes? So a big part of practice is setting up the conditions in our life in which to remember. Buddhist teachings are our guidebook, what to do when we don't know what to do, or at least how to be when we don't know how to be. So a really simple example is you're spending time with, or you're at a work event or something where you have to spend time with your in-laws. You might feel really awkward. You might feel like, oh, I'm overdressed or underdressed. I don't know what to say. I feel like a robot, like I don't know how to move my body. What's going on? But then you can remember your foundation. Oh, here I am. I feel really shy. I feel like I don't know what to do, but I do know that I can practice kindness, that I can practice being grounded in presence, and I can take joy in the joy of the people around me who maybe are more comfortable. I can practice remembering that base, that place of return. And that makes my own life a lot simpler and a lot easier, because then the other stuff becomes secondary or almost entirely irrelevant. And we can get down to the more interesting elements of a life. But the remembering is the truly difficult task. And we have to remember that the immeasurables aren't just for how we respond to other people, but how we're responding to our own experience. So in that honest assessment of our own reactivity and habit patterns, can we bring forward the 4 immeasurables as the response? Being kind and generous with our own experience, which of course benefits everyone else. So sometimes the remembering happens long after the fact, like we're rehearsing some event that happened a month ago again and again and again, like, oh, I was angry, but I was right, and blah, 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 blah. And we can remember in that moment, a month later, like, oh, I could respond from this foundation of kindness and generosity. I'll try next time, perhaps better next time. And then maybe it happens 20 more times the same way, but we keep remembering, keep being kind to ourselves and to the experience that we're having. In practice, change is incremental and it's also immediately, simultaneously. And life is practice. That's what we can keep remembering. Life is, we're just practicing. One other example I really liked about practicing the 4 immeasurables was a story a friend told me about organizing an art show. So she and 3 other friends, artists, put together an art show, and the big night came, and all 4 of them had art up, and none of her pieces sold. But her friend had a really great night. To start with, her inner critic was present. She was feeling small. She was feeling like she wanted to get out of there. It was really an uncomfortable situation. And then she remembered, oh, I can practice being in my feet. I can practice patience, and I can return to my ground of the 4 immeasurables. I can be joyful for the fact that all of these people came together in the name of creativity. How beautiful. I can be joyful for my friend who worked so hard to be an artist and to be successful. And I just love that example because she really wasn't trying to negate her experience. Like, she still felt some hurt around, like, oh, how am I as an artist? What does this mean? But also was able to expand her view way bigger than that, way bigger than her own, like, small experience into the space of the whole room. Appreciating the people that got to be there and appreciating her friend. So it makes our life easier when we remember these things. They offer a way out of tunnel vision. I usually like to have some kind of like pith instructions that are specific to me, and I recommend it. So like having something posted on your bathroom mirror or in your car, or just some way to do this remembering, which is the really challenging part. And being active enough with your practice that it's allowed to change. So if I put up like the 4 immeasurables on my mirror and then just leave it there for years, I stop even seeing it. But if I continue to allow that to change and put up new little rememberings, then it stays creative and engaged. So my pith instruction to myself right now is liberation is contagious. Our state of mind is contagious. It's our offering to whoever we meet, whatever our state of mind is. And a really simple example of this is meeting our pets at the end of the day. I remember as a kid I had a Rottweiler who I still like, her state of mind is still impacting me like 30 years later. Just the way that her whole body would wiggle when I came home from school. Or the cat that was just very consistent about, I would be all the way in the backyard. We had this really narrow yard, and she would start meowing at the house and come all the way out meowing to meet me in the backyard. Like, those are just really simple examples of how states of mind impact us and continue to ripple through time. So liberation is contagious. Whatever our state of mind is, spreads to the people around us. One of the ways that we can remember the four immeasurables is being around people who, how do you say it, are contagious in good ways. By making sure we're spending time with beings who share our intention for goodness. Spend time with people that bring out the best in us. Because we are who we are with. We are what we're tasting, smelling, seeing, and touching. What else is there? Which is an invitation to be really careful about how we absorb and how much time we spend on the news and media. We can't control our conditions, and we don't know what will happen next on the intimate level, personal interaction level, and on the larger scale, earthquakes, politics, when the next spring day will be. But we can set up the conditions to remember how we would like to respond. Our response can come from the foundation of the four divine abidings, and this foundation is not contingent on the circumstances that we find ourselves in. They can be the basis of operation for whatever the circumstance. They make it so that we actually are responding through choice rather than reactivity. And perhaps our baseline kindness is kind of low sometimes, and we can keep working on that and building it so that that foundation is stable and whole no matter what, no matter how difficult the person that we're meeting. This is a step-by-step patient engagement, a continuous returning and remembering, and kind of a creation of a new habit. Chosen has often said, and this has been important for me, we're doing the work, this work of creating this scaffolding of goodness, the roots of goodness that perhaps our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents didn't know to do or couldn't do or didn't have the time to do. And we have the opportunity to become the parents and grandparents and friends that maybe we never had. We have the opportunity to offer that to the next generation. What is your vantage point on this? Again, Kosho Uchiyama Roshi in the book, The Roots of Goodness, I couldn't find the direct quote, but basically he said, if you are stuck in a particular view or a particular way of being, buy a coffin and stick it in the main room of your house. If your family or friends would allow you to do such a thing. And then get in it and look from that place. What do you want to see? What would you like to look back on? Death is the great unifier. Whatever successes and failures and stories we've created, gone in an instant. At some unpredictable moment, life will be over. What's that vantage point like? What do you want to see? Liberation is contagious. Goodness is contagious. A large tree has the capacity and ability to reach its roots and connect with the other trees in the forest and the young trees in the forest and offer its support. And we can do that too for each other. So creating these roots of goodness isn't just for ourselves, but for all of the little mycelial connections we make throughout our life. So please continue practicing warm regard for everyone you meet.
We have time for a few questions or comments. Which isn't quite ready.
Hi, this is Rengyo. It's kind of a basic question, but I'm not sure I know the difference between loving kindness and compassion. Could you speak to that?
I don't really know.
Okay.
I can give you an analogy that's helpful. So one analogy that's used is for loving kindness. Let's say you're pregnant, or you even know somebody who's pregnant, and you haven't seen that child yet, but you feel loving kindness for it. So you haven't met this person. It's kind of an imaginary person moving around inside of you, but your heart is open, and there's a basic friendly or warm attitude towards that person. So that's loving kindness. So the word loving is difficult because we associate it in the Western world with romantic love. But loving kindness really means friendly attitude. So, for example, if you go into the post office, can you hold a warm heart for everyone in line in front of you who has something important they want to do in the post office, or for the clerks who are tired at the end of the day, and so on. And then compassion, so after the baby's born and the baby suffers, the baby cries, the baby's hungry and distressed, baby falls down and gets hurt. Compassion is feeling with, so feeling with that person's suffering and being moved to try to relieve it if possible. And then sympathetic joy when, let's say, the baby's about a year old and learns to walk and is so triumphant about their accomplishments. Sympathetic joy is the heart swelling and sharing in their how pleased they are at what they've accomplished. And then equanimity is after the child goes away, off to college or living their own life somewhere, and we don't know what's going on with them. And this could apply to a friend too if you don't have children. You had a good friend, and then that friend has gone off and living their own life, and you don't know what's happening, but you wish them well, and no matter, maybe you read that they won the lottery, and so maybe jealousy arrives in your heart, but then you switch it to wishing them well, and you have a kind of equanimity with if it's your child, with their choices in life, hopefully, or you can meet their choices in life with calm equanimity, but then also loving kindness. So I think that those analogies really help. Friendliness towards everyone is loving kindness. Compassion is feeling with when somebody is suffering and wanting be moved to try to help. Sympathetic joy is really tricky because in this society you want to be the best, right? So if somebody wins a prize and you are hoping to place first, and you didn't place at all. Can you have affection in your heart and rejoice with them? And then equanimity. We're being challenged right now, I think, in our country to feel equanimity when changes are coming at us so fast, and to hold an open heart. So those are the four, basically.
So you were talking about the habit energy, remembering the thing from a month ago, I should have done it this way. Maybe it happens the way that you wish it hadn't several more times. And I'm just curious for you, like, how do you get from just, going over it in the past to remembering to do something different in the moment?
Having specific practices has helped me, and I think this maybe is one Chosen has talked about and offered too, but I noticed, especially when I noticed that when I would see people approaching me, sometimes my heart would close. And so just having the practice of opening the actual physical space of the heart and relaxing the body before the interaction even began. So maybe not having a story of like, oh, this interaction needs to go a particular way, but just starting it, if I had the capacity and remembered, with embodiment and with a kind of open expression, like even changing my posture. Because if I noticed someone was approaching me or I was about to interact about something I didn't want to talk about, there can be a posture that we take. So opening up and softening is one way. And just patience, yeah.
Can you speak on self-compassion?
Anything
It's like-
specific?
Well, we talk about compassion, and I see someone else hurting, and it's pretty automatic. But then all the small things that are maybe our own worlds can be somehow more tricky to navigate.
Yes, I'm still learning to navigate them myself. And I think actually similar to what I shared with Shogetsu is embodiment's really helpful. Having my feet grounded on the floor is really helpful. Being aware of what I'm thinking is very helpful, because if I'm just running this storyline of inner critic and I don't even notice that I'm completely merged with it, as though it's like completely true, it's challenging to get out of that. Taking that bigger vantage point of like, oh, this thought process that I'm going through is simultaneously very personal and also cultural, and also absorbed by like things my parents said and things my grandparents said, and kind of recognizing the meta view of it can be relieving. I don't know, there's lots of people here who work with inner critics. Are there any other examples that people use to work with that? Yeah, please.
I would say very simply just practice metta for yourself when you're sitting. It's like, may I be free from fear and anxiety. May I be at ease. May I be happy. For hours. And it might help. That helped me a lot. And I still do that. Yeah.
Something I do when I'm sort of caught in some habitual reactivity and there's a lack of compassion and space around it is to, if I have time, I'll grab a piece of paper or my notebook and I'll just write it down. Like, how am I feeling? And just get curious about my experience of what's happening. And usually inside that experience, there's some hurt part. And investigating that hurt part enough, I always see that there's just some sort of fear there. And seeing that there's really like a hurt child inside me. And I think just seeing that, like, I'm wounded and there's fear, can bring about some self-compassion.
I guess something that I would do, I do, whenever my thoughts get too much, hard to control, and it kind of disrupts the way I see things, is that I would take a pause and just tell myself, I love you, Ash. I love you, Ash, and not, see, the tone matters. The tone matters. How you say it to yourself matters. Like saying I love you to a little child, that's how I tell myself that. And also, like, just giving my heart a warm smile or a warm hug also helps. And just because it's not gonna solve everything, but it will, somehow hug those negative thoughts, negative stuff that's in the mind, and just, you know what, it's okay, and just giving just love, and just tell yourself, I love you, Ash, and it's fine. It always gives that joy, and I hope it helps.
Maybe one more person commenting. Did you go? Close with you.
Sort of on that topic, one thing that I've found really helpful in looking into the 4 Brahma Viharas and thinking about them, often compassion, loving kindness, and sympathetic joy are sort of thought of as the kind of 3 core pillars or 3 legs of the stool, with equanimity more as the seat of the stool. That equanimity is less a separate Brahma Vihara and more a characteristic that is required for the other 3. And I think that when we are trying to feel compassion for ourselves, in a lot of ways that's very difficult, because equanimity in things that are that close to us is harder. If we see somebody else suffering, but we have no investment in that situation, then we can feel compassion a little more easily, because we can feel equanimity a little more easily. Whereas if we are in a situation, perhaps we jump to guilt or judgment, or all the way through to the other side, and we jump to pity, which is not at all compassion. It's kind of the near enemy of compassion. And so working on building equanimity is often the prerequisite for being able to find the compassion and loving kindness, and I guess sympathetic joy for yourself is just joy, but being able to find those more in our own lives and in the lives of the people that are closest to us and whose situations we are the most invested in and perhaps have the hardest time feeling equanimous about.